screenplays. So let's welcome Frank Ambriz.
Hi. First thing I'm going to read is a poem I wrote. It's titled Cancer. People say I wanted to be sick because I needed love and attention. Perhaps it's true. I embraced and welcomed the visitor who took refuge inside my body. People came and people went. They thought they would never see me again. I loved every minute of it. Perhaps it's true what people say. Now I'm going to read some extras from, I'm writing a book, so. Just have a title yet. This morning I called Eva's mail/voice box. I wanted to tell her about the dream I had about her last night. Hi, this is Eva Malensky voice box. Please leave your message and I will return your call. Thank you. It's me. Please call me as soon as possible, I pleaded. Without moving, I waited for her to call. I waited and I waited. Finally, the phone rang. Eva? Mr. Gallard? Yes, good morning. My name is Bruce and I'm in strapped at the New York clock. I grabbed the phone book and looked under GAL. Galan, Galander, Galanti, Galas, Gallardo, no Gallard. I wonder how this page is coming number. I look at my watch and turn on Geraldo. He's introducing high school friends and famous people to a mall full of white, middle-aged women and a few elderly white men who have obviously retired from life. Judy, did they not play her ever showing criminal tendencies in high school? Geraldo asked with a grin look on his face. Judy murmurs. Well, actually, no, Judy thinks about it. Actually, Geraldo, I never make that a play, but she tells him. I turned off the TV and opened my blue address book that Eva bought in St. Mark's Place for my 25th birthday. I desperately start searching for someone to talk to and finding that there's really no one I wanted except for Eva. I stop and I look around my apartment, and a weird feeling of loneliness starts to slowly creep up on me, as if I was the only man alive on this fucking planet. I'm feeling like a total stranger breaking into someone's life. I don't recognize the walls that I painted black shortly after Eva moved out, and the snapshots on the walls of Eva and me smiling, wearing our stupid hats that Lonnie and Nola had given us for our 3rd-month anniversary, when we went to Coney Island on a cold winter day, when we were still fucking, and thinking that only a retarded no-talent asshole like me would paint his walls black. I called Eva's mail/voice box again. Hi, this is Eva Malensky voice box. Please leave your message and I will return your call. Thank you. It's me again. I couldn't remember why I had called. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you about the dream I had last night. You were in it, and you wanted me to join a cult or something like that. And I said, no. You then punished me by forcing me to eat raw meat. Well, what does that mean? I asked, hanging up the phone. I go to my bed and pull out an old Playboy magazine from under the mattress and open it to page 26. This December, Eva Malensky from Hartford, Connecticut. 36, 26, 36. Dislikes, war, nuclear weapons, world hunger, frizzy hair. Favorite books, The Great Gatsby, Catcher in the Rye, and The Spy Who Wore Glitter. She's surrounded by icicles and she's wearing a red Santa's hat. I start to jerk off. I close my eyes and think about the first time we made love. Oh, this test, that ass. Oh, Eva. I jerk my leg harder and harder. I love you, Eva. With a fierce explosion I come. Holding my dick in my hand, I think about the dream I had last night. Raw meat? But she's a vegetarian. What does that mean? This is after Eva leaves his character. This is a party. The rooftop of a brownstone on West 4th Street, Greenwich Village, New York City. The triplets are celebrating the 29th birthday. The band is playing. Lucky, lucky, I feel yucky. Lucky, lucky, I feel yucky. She's screaming into the microphone. Who's that girl singing? I asked the guy next to me. Oh, that's Linda, he tells me, gets up and get another beer. Lucky, lucky, I feel yucky. She's pulling out her hair. Eva is drinking her fourth beer. She hasn't eaten all day. She's drunk and horny. She's kissing a guy named Joe with her tight blue jeans, red tank top, and hard nipples, looking like a flower child. She dances towards him. Hi, I'm Eva. What's your name? She asked with a fucking look on her face. Joe, he said. Eva is smiling and sipping her beer. Great name. Are you into safe sex? Of course. Good, me too. She tells him with pride. Lottie and Nolan are filling each other up and smoking camel lights. I want to start your deck, someone said. I turn around and see Lottie on top of Nolan, laughing and taking a long drag from her camel. She says, I'm giving him his flying face. Nolan's face is buried deep inside Lottie's breast. I think Joe is gay, Eva declared. Why, I asked. He wants you to give him a call. She hands me a piece of yellow paper. Oh, tossing the paper in an empty bag. I'm more, she says. Let's go to the cubby hole, Eva ordered. Well, let me say goodbye to Mike the triplet. I see Mike near the edge of the roof looking down. Hey, Mike, great party. I hug him and kiss him. Eva and I are going to the cubby hole. Do you want to come? Have another rolling rock, Mike the triplet said, and taps me on the shoulder. Suddenly, I'm seeing West 4th Street and the top of a black Buick. Was it a blue Lincoln? Oh, fuck. Mike the triplet screamed. All I could think of was that I had not done my laundry in 2 weeks and my apartment was a mess. I opened my eyes and Linda, the singer, was holding my hand. Don't move, she said, with a sweet southern accent. You're Linda, right? Wiping the blood from my eyes and combing my hair with my fingers. Yes, from West Virginia, she added.
Did I say everything you wanted me to say? Famous playwright, famous poet, good friend. Oh, okay. Our next poet, I have a great pleasure announcing John Pineiro, who is also appearing in Poetsfeet 3 the second time. He was also in the previous issue. John?
How's everybody? Many years ago, I started writing poems, I think it was like 1967, 68, many years ago. And at that time, there were people who lived on the street. Not as many as we see today. And of course, the many people that we see today is we can give thanks to Ronald Reagan and Mr. George Bush for their continuing policies against the poor and against the needy. But at that time, when I first started writing, I noticed that there were people like that. And there was a distance between me and them. And there still is a distance between me and them. But I think that now, perhaps there's more of a distance between us and them than perhaps even just a year ago. They have become so numerous that I think we've become a bit forgetful that they are people. And so I looked at some of the poems that I had written in the past, and I drew out 2 of them, which are from a street series that I had written. And I'd like to read 2 of them for you, and then a few more after that, which are not street poems, but these 2 will be. This poem, by the way, is based on someone I knew on the street. Did you ever see a black woman with her head in a plastic bag? Well, she exists. Yes, she does. Exists in a plastic bag where she eats, where she hides from the fumes that cars make. Yes, in a plastic bag. Where she lives, keeping out the rain and the stairs, safe in a plastic bag. I guess this next one is also about someone we know and don't know at the same time, and maybe we're sort of hearing what he's saying to himself about us. we still notice each other. I haven't shut them out yet. They're place people, moving from place to place. But anywhere I stop and sit becomes a place for me. And it's mine only for a shorter time than theirs is for them. My life is shorter too. I know there's less of it. I feel it winding down. I'm almost dead. I will be soon, perhaps. They will pass me by, as they're used to doing, and they won't notice I'm gone. As often happens in poetry readings, the conceit of a writer sometimes becomes unintelligible to most of us. And in this case, this is a poem which will probably be unintelligible to most of us. Because it happens to be written in Spanish. I also write some poems in Spanish. This is from a series called Visions from a Train. And they're all in Spanish. But this is just one of them from that series. By the way, all of you know the expression salud, don't you? Salud. Salud. Chico, abandona tu rigor. No nacimos para vivir muertos. Mira, la formalidad es práctica para un entierro. En serio, lo que importa es estar de buen humor. En fin, tenemos la obligación de rezar a carcajadas. El único misterio es el origen de la próxima sonrisa. La única tragedia es no gozar la comedia. Salud. This is, again, all these poems are parts of a series of poems. This is from a series on Words on Canvas. And the original idea was to have the poem opposite the reproduction of the painting. And these are two paintings in words. And if you can just perhaps try to imagine some of it as it's happening, it might be interesting. This might be interesting. I don't have the pictures. This one is, the name of the painting is Mrs. Abington. She was an actress in the 1800s, famous actress, and she was playing a part in one of Congreve's plays. And she was painted by Sir Joshua Reynolds, who painted these very elegant portraits of people. There was this sort of spotlight, illuminating them and separating them from their environment so that they just stood out. And this was one person who had her dog painted with her. Oh, I've seen her before. Frozen in that moment which you chose out of many. But what should I make of that look? You saw her leaning forward against the back of the chair, her arms draped over the top. But what of her look? Her wispy-haired pup is almost another tangle of lace, another silken fold, another frill. But oh, that look. Another portrait, modern painter, Stanley Spencer. Many of you may not have heard of him. He's a British painter. And the title of this was Seated Nude. And Well, I'll paint it for you. You show me this is the way she was. Was she? I think of what time must look like on canvas. Is her body that image? Stripped to the hips, her flesh in folds, her look past bloom. She startles me with her preview of things to come. This last one was written 2 days ago. I didn't type it yet. I had seen a couple of movies on the weekend. One was Everyone's Fine and the other one was Europa, Europa. And I guess seeing the two of them that close together made me sort of realize how the things that people do and make, if you get exposed to enough of them, begin to sort of add up to something. And so this poem was, I guess, sort of begins to tie that with this. It's called The Sum Total. It's the last poem. The pieces. It's only the pieces here and there, collected over time, they begin to take shape. An image, a vision, a glimpse of the whole. We come close, we approach. It's all an approximation, an almost statistical aggregation of accidental, incidental bits of pieces, only pieces here and there. Thank you.
One of the things that I like to do is to continue publishing poets that have appeared in poetsfeet, and so you'll see many recurring names throughout the issues. And also, I would like to publish in other languages, so never let that be an obstacle. Our next poet is Michael James Fry, wonderful actor, producer, public. Michael?
How is everybody today? I must say, I think I'm from England when I get a bit nervous like I am right now. I was looking around the room when I got in here and I noticed that everybody in this room is attractive. The room is just full of beautiful people. It's my pleasure. We can't see you. Stewless man. Okay. This first poem is it's actually a fairy tale. Can you see my paper shaking? It's about a man who finds everything just by a stroke of luck. He follows his instincts and he finds what he's looking for, but it turns out to be so much bigger and greater and grander. I guess it's like the dream come true that we're all searching for. Are there any couples here tonight? Any couples? No. No couples? Everybody's single, huh? Okay. Well, good. Okay, this is called The Island of Romance. My ship found home at the crack of dawn on the island of romance. I began to roam on this dreamlike world where rainbows and waterfalls dance. Passion shouts as my heart reaches out to embrace any trace of song or show. Dewdrops fall on my eyes like tears, oh, the years and fears of long ago. As I walk through the trees, I sense a sweet breeze that will seduce me until my death. While I follow the smell, my heart tells me that this is where we will meet, my soul and the breeze of life. your breath. The air here is thin, and yet from within I know this is where I belong. My breath is alive, and I know I'll survive, for your breeze preserves my song. Time fades away as day grows tonight. The brightest light trickles out from your eyes. My mind lives free and knows no fright. Our bond is no surprise. And there you are, as fresh as a rose, with the moon shining down from above like a star when your arms enclose me to your hair, my blanket of love. It's as if I were born to make love to you, forever enchanting, the greatest exploration of all. When two souls become one, what can I do? Either rise and cry, or smile and fall. And here we are, after having traveled so far, me a lonely sailor, guided by your star, and you, the mother of the island of romance. I'm just going to read one more, and this is one that's really for the couples. It's about sex. This is called You Do Me. You do me, you do me, you do me, and I'm as happy as can be. You do me well, it's really swell how well you do me, my beautiful Southern belle. Will you do me again, my cute little friend? Will you do me in a brand new way? Make our sky a bright sunny day? You know why we'll have the right kind of lady. Do me up, do me down, do me all around. Do me sideways so the hair falls off my head. Do me on the floor, all fours and in the bed. Do me so I beg for more till the day I drop dead. Just do me now, I don't care how. Impulsiveness is best, it is said. I'll do you too. Just give me a clue of what you like the best. A lay, a rest, an excited caressed breast. We could do it in a bird's nest, but be careful of the eggs, for I have long legs, as the mother bird begs us to leave her nest. Us, an uninvited guest. It's back to our bed, I guess. We'll roll, we'll hump, we'll take a dump, and come again for more. We can do it again on the floor. I'll nail you against the door. Make believe we're by the seashore. Buy whipped cream at the grocery store. You know that won't be a bore. Oh shit, we'll have fun galore. There is no end, my friend, to the love we can send. Lend me your ear and I will kiss it. You will hear me live. You will hear me love. Hear me below and up above. Here, there, everywhere. You do me, you do me, you do me, and I'm as happy as can be. Thank you.
That was Michael James Fry. And the next poet is poetess. She has chastised me for not having enough of women on the reading list here. I put out the call, but they were all out of town, Tommasina. So. Tommasina Gabriele.
Hi. I really like happy poems, but I don't seem to ever write any. My poems, I don't have very much of an introduction for each of them. They kind of have to stand on their own. A couple of them are from the most recent issue of Poetsfeet. The first one is called Interlude. You can follow along. Okay. You are a perfect part of the fog. You row us on the lake turned gray, amidst trees turned gray. The fog is breathy and damp, like the years of our friendship, and sometimes is cold. Behind it, the cottages disappear. Summer becomes an illusion. My life is somewhere down the turnpike. I have no husband, no brother, no bed. Only you as the fog. come back with a gray embrace, defying color, thwarting happiness, rocking and rowing us in a landscape-turned water, in a gray-green boat, in a horde of words with long electric edges. 2. I can smell home away from you. The next one I'm going to read is also from the most recent issue of Poets Feet, and it's a very, very old one, well, 8 or 9 years old. It's called Death Due to Inebriation. And it starts with, I guess they're called epigraphs by Wallace Stevens. Is the spot on the floor there wine or blood? And whichever it may be, is it mine? The beads of the heavy necklace tremble like loose teeth on her small breasts. The white dress hides the wrinkled folds of her dark orange thighs, rouged orange as her face and orange arms. She bends over the railing, clutching the iron bar. Her children do not come. They do not dream their mother's body bending over the balcony. Behind her, there are pictures that securely pin the walls to her desirous past. Sally. She whispers the name she said was hers. The sidewalk takes her against its hard body and murmurs, Agnes, Agnes, do you take death to be your lawful wedded? On the table were shards of glass, the wine and surrender around them. In the night, no one saw her color. The next two are very, very recent, about a month old, and they go together. They have the same theme, and the theme's not very hard, I don't have to tell you what it is. I relied on bad memory. That's how I made it out the door each morning. I depended on that door's transformations like I counted on my own. But I had not reckoned with death, that like a pirate salvaged these sunken treasures, and like Pandora sprung them free. Now on lazy nights, I can too clearly hear the zing and whoosh, the bacchanal of flies on your cheese-spattered dress, as you strain ricotta before the old hearth, and let the children unpin your long gray hair to play. Now, I see you in parts. Whole you are gone. Unreasonably, we are hoping to keep you for one more year yet. Body and all, sharp eyes and slow words, the dragging of your men's shoes, and your big body in a gray or blue print dress that covers a plastic bag. These 25 years, anything discarded has passed right out. Your body would not tolerate its own refuse. A prayer forgotten through disuse came to me tonight when they told me you were yellow and growing more so. A child's prayer you taught me long ago, a child's rhyme, so who would I have asked? Not even you. It came last night like a drawbridge slapped over water. But I prefer memory's duels, its moats unbridged, its sneers, to this alarming generosity. The next one is, well, the next one also is about a theme you'll all recognize. I was surprised by, in our most recent war, of the quantity of materials that were out there. And despite that huge quantity of material and information, they all seemed incredibly contradictory, and I never had any idea of what was going on. And the more I watched the news or heard the radio, the less I seemed to have any idea about. And I thought maybe this was a new way of keeping us all ignorant, giving us so much material from the media, this well-equipped media, that we had no idea what was going on. Anyway, my desire through this tragic war, because war can be nothing but tragic, was the desire for silence amidst all of this media. And so this is a poem in search of silence. Behind the broadcast. War is broadcast, resembling fiction. The war sounds like a spreadsheet. Tonnage of bombs, thousands of sorties, percentages of attrition. Arab, Israeli, American. My father, uneducated, says just a name is enough to enrage. If I forbear, none of it leaves me, so I speak. They aren't worth one drop of our blood. Of course, our blood is better than theirs because it's ours. But the exiled poet living in Cairo doesn't know which is hers. Tell me a story brimming with silence. It's harder and harder to get people's attention. From the moon or thereabouts, I've observed a tiny planet that contains philosophy, theology, politics, and it's all very strange. By the waters of Babylon, we sit down to weep. By the thickening waters of the rivers of Babylon. Thank you.
Tommasina is one of the few people I can say we actually know each other, and we know that we have been writing poetry for 15 years. Oh my God, you think we can make a living at this finally, right? Our next poet is Garduno, a dear friend of mine, wonderful actress. We welcome her to the world of poetry.
I just want to make this announcement at that table. I've been seeing when I was the freshman. Okay, this is in the current issue of Poetsfeet. It's called 5:32 a.m. Ordering diner eggs, hash, sausage, and a six-pack delivered to the roof. Want a cocktail? Code for shall we fuck later. Raspy laugh, naughty, honey sweet grin, silver belt buckle, a perfect ass, skinny but strong, wild old-fashioned scrapper, fuck fight played to the death, a scruffy beautiful mutt that once won, sticks, growls, biting your neck, pinning your arms, grabbing your hair tight at the collar, watches your face like a hunter. Where's the man who will lick my neck the way my cats lick each other? He's inches from my face, watching me like a hunter, waiting for the perfect strike, striking oil, striking gold. He's got black, sweaty little boy curls against opaque Irish skin, smooth Irish-Italian skin. He smells of vodka, cigarettes, dark-dyed bars bathed in red light, Dylan, Cocker, and Armstrong on the jukebox, 8 songs for $1. Smoky women with eyes half open like flags set at half-mast when somebody's died. sad and regal, those late night girls. But tonight I don't care, because I've won. I've won. My voice drops 2 octaves when I'm with him. When I'm with him late. When I'm with him naked. When I'm with him sweaty. I'm quiet. I'm still. He's watching me like a hunter. He says my face is like a prism. Calls me an Indian girl. We play chase the ice cube. His cool, wet mouth on my breast. I arch, I stretch. I'm very, very still. I want to suck on his breath like a cat. Slowly, slowly, arms pinned, hair pulled tight. Chase the ice cube carefully over the curve to the neck. Slide up into my mouth. Cool, clear water. Hot, cold, smoky, clear, clean kiss. What do you want? What do you like? What do you like? What do you want? I don't answer. I like to fuck over tables. I like dancing naked on a chair wearing your hat. I like Stolich night at kisses. I like to be hunted. I don't answer. In his kiss, I'm taken for a ride, taken through the loop, taken round the bend. In this kiss, I'm red light, I'm smoke. I'm last tango minus the sad ending. I'm a perfect pool shot. In this kiss, I'm in love with a man who smells like vodka. I used to love a man who smelled like redwoods. I once loved a man who smelled like salt. I almost loved a man who smelled like shampoo. I tried to love a man who smelled like cotton. But in this kiss, I'm in love with a man who smells like vodka. Must be New York. Must be grown up. Must be late. I'm a perfect pool shot. He's Tom Waits and Gatorade. This next one is called, the title cracks me up. This next one is called Mr. Movie Star. Mr. Movie Star called, seems he's in town on meetings, but could squeeze a blowjob into his schedule if I can pop up, as it were. He'll pay for the cab, he'll pay for room service, he'll pay for my favorite bottle of wine. Gee, what a bargain. Who can resist? Who could refuse? Who else did he call before me? If I sound bitter, it's because I am. I went because I was in the mood to wrap his long blonde hair around my wrist tight. I went because I wanted to be picked up and thrown on the bed by someone who knew how to throw. I went because I wanted to be told I was beautiful for 40 minutes. I went because I knew that while leaping uptown during rush hour on 5 minutes notice could be considered humiliating in certain circles, I felt it had a certain last tango in Paris quality that I liked. I went mainly because there was nothing good on TV. I went because I knew I'd leave him wanting more, and that made me feel powerful. When did the passive female become the master? I know how to intoxicate by meeting a dare, calling a bluff, threatening to arrive in high heels and nothing else. I know how to hook them by feigning interest in dull stories about acting styles and Pacino. I know how to blush on cue. I know how to work that whole whore, Madonna, good little bad girl, bad little good girl thing. I know how to pretend I've never fucked in a shower before, which at the ripe old age of 31 is no small feat. He threw me on the bed, which was good. His hair had been dyed black, which was bad. My beautiful blonde Viking fantasy fuck had been transformed into a slovenly, slack-jawed, fat, dirty biker guy, minus the groovy Brando element, for HBO. Trouble in Hollywood. Rather than suffer the indignities of limited travel and having to trade in his electronic hotel room key at the Pineiro for the Parker Meridian, he opted for a quick fix sex and violence flick and was calling it character work. So much for art, so much for important little films with integrity. Skip the chase, cut to the end. He called on Friday, did I want dinner? He called on Saturday, did I want dinner and a play? He called twice on Sunday. Did I want to go to Amsterdam? I was in. I heard every word. I let the machine pick up. Ah, victory. And then I just want to read one more because I've only ever read this once out loud, so figure what the hell. Here we go. This is called Mr. Late Night. Oh my God, all right. He was a drug addict. He was a professional drug addict. He was the first person I ever met who was truly better off on a combo of coke, pot, Valium, and booze. Not bragging, just being honest, brutally honest. He was very, very smart. Why is it so many smart people are drug fiends? As he rounded the corner, my heart skipped and I liked it. I saw him and I wasn't hungry. I saw him and I wasn't tired. I saw him and my breath grew warm and deep. My face, skin, and the edges of my mouth became hot. I saw him and I wanted to arch my back so he could pull my hair longer. I saw him and I wasn't an ingenue. I felt like a Scorsese girl. Dark, strong, long, long legs. A deep blue, red, purple girl. Day for night, night for day. Morning wake-up call at midnight. Blow-off auditions died into a 36-hour ride. Swimming in vodka, naked, twirling, dancing, bathed in a yellow streetlight, breaking through a dusty window at dawn. His eyes and Ricky Lee Jones's newest CD, The Only Witness. I liked how I felt safe and protected in his company. He said, take your clothes off, slowly, quietly, with a little smile. Gracious, grateful, and sure I'd do it. He paid very close attention to every little detail of my movements. He savored my red nail polish and dark hair. He wondered what a nice Catholic girl was doing with him. We fucked in the middle of the kitchen floor, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the winter, in the middle of a house full of Republicans. It was then I decided I wanted to be his girl. He was destined to say, you're too nice for me. I was destined to say, fuck you. It was destined to end in shit. I knew this, and I still wanted to be his girl, his skirt, his cookie, his partner in crime, his woman. I wanted it bad. I could taste it. It tasted like salt on a steak. I was seeking the dark side, the earthy, volatile, Scorpio, translucent, torrid, visceral side. I wanted the dark and light to coexist, commingle, coagulate, burst forth and melt in a spray of orange sparks and liquid lava. Hot, cool, thick, smooth waves. The way sex is when it works. When romance and ritual entwine like a braid and can be used as a rope. Something to hold on to.
I encourage submissions of erotic material. It's so much more fun to read. Well, I'm up next. I'm Margaret Kruszewska, whatever you call me. I'm going to take my shoes off or put the mic up. Okay. The first piece that I'm going to read is turning out to be an epic poem that I've been working on. Actually, since moving back to this area from California. And it's entitled Writing the Family History. So this is attempt number 2. In the family, the females abound, who do not wed and do not birth. They are strong and become both mothers and fathers to the children that await them. The men do not fare so well. In this small village, cousin marries cousin. He is tall, all angle formed from jaw to ankle. She is round like goose down pillows. This village has been raped. Russians first, then Germans. It is always one of the two. Massacres, massacres, and more massacres every other decade, it seems. The unspoken is even more horrific. There were also these Poles there in those camps, and despised gypsies. Half of his family vanished. And after a certain point, really anyone who looked at you crooked, causing such deeply embedded grief, brutality becomes the learned weapon, paranoia the chivalrous sword. And flowers everywhere, wrapped around maypoles, outdoor altars in the hayfields. This is where one cousin boy died, my age, fierce red hair, his motorbike the only joy of being fast in this Cowstown family village. It would have been from alcohol otherwise. The silent dream that awakened the immigrant families, that wakened me worse than loud gunshots. I used to hear that all in that huge house on Beach Street, the red and white eagle flags flying in the middle of little Puerto Rico, nationalism at its best, fierce, defiant, ignoring the obvious, and always flowers everywhere. Red poppies this time, tucked into 1950s baggy men's jackets with war medals, veterans with ulcers and canes. This is what remains in the new land. This is a recent poem of mine. Today is the beginning of a fiery summer day. In this smoke-lined city, I can almost taste your long white body rising above fireballs and alcohol fumes, fights at 3 a.m. in that vivid tone you reserved for your instrument, and exhaustion, almost a perfect pose as you enter and settle in. But I want more. Inhaling your breath, filling me with liquid love, my mouth sometimes could not contain all of you. How I crave you now in that hot steam of my city room, painted red for some reason under all white wraps. To this day, I wonder what you do in your new town, so hot and dry there, so perfect for your mouth. We are further than we could ever be. The exit so sly and incomplete, the excuse so obvious. Today is the beginning of a fiery summer day. We ignore it and hope it will go away. From a series called Traveling with Myself, a lot of which was written when I first arrived in New York, and my friends from 53rd and Madison will recognize what I'm talking about here. Perhaps because she was only with herself, she learned to eat whenever she wanted to. So much time is spent on feeding with others that she found huge gaps of time left open, usually designated for dining with someone. She mentioned this to a friend of hers, a well-known elderly professor who had just traveled to Berlin without his wife, and he confirmed the voidness of this hour. It is even more difficult than sleeping by yourself, he pronounced in a careful English. And I have finally learned to do that. But I cannot eat by myself. It makes me too sad. The amazing sense of food flooded her dreams now. The richest smell came from under the wide blue and yellow umbrella vendor on 53rd and Madison. Honey roasted peanuts. Big, round, brown, teeth-crunching peanuts. Today, in the pouring rain, she ran out to get her afternoon stash from him. He recognized her. beautiful young Italian boy with mischief on his lips. He took his time finding the biggest bag. Sweetness of the brown honey melting in the bowls made her feel as if she was on a class trip to Playland, buying cotton candy in the middle of the workday. She took her time counting the dollar and change. They looked at each other several times. They played at being excited. She continued counting and glancing up at him. Cotton candy smell in the middle of the workday. He didn't know that was what really thrilled her. She knew just how long to keep this going to make it seem promising, and the exact timing of running back across the street to make sure it remained so. It's called Losing Time. I regret opening to you so readily and quickly that it caught even me by surprise the night you blew wariness from my eyes. I regret forming words powerful enough to shake both of us for days as you tossed and turned in a proposal that sunk us deeper through the haze. I regret being reminded yet again that I can love you today, only to realize that you will not stay. I regret giving you my keys, my love, my advice, my love, my heart, my conch, brains, and voice, my love, my time, my love, mostly my time, my love, because if I had not given you this in the beginning, I would not now be feverishly forgetting and mostly regretting my love, mostly regretting my love. Any requests, because most of you are regulars here.
Sex fest.
Sex fest? Oh, no, you don't have a sex today. Never done. What? Really? You want a piece of sex mess? Yeah. I have to get it. It's in the bag there, so we must get it. Meanwhile, I'll read you the Polish poem. This is called That Which I Remember I Now Don't Remember at All, and it's in Polish. Translation? To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Tam, gdzieś dawno, bardzo, bardzo dawno. Ja trzymałam wszystko blisko, białe, blisko i często znalazłam coś czerwone też. Czerwone ręce, czerwone nogi, czerwone usta, ale nieładne kwiaty. Zawsze duże i rozkwitnięte, tak jak ten dom albo ten las, co ciągle miał wiele większe niż ja. Za duże, to co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Tylko wyrazy, jeden słów wyciągnięte przez te duże lasy, lasy bez grzyb, bez jaków. To co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Jakaś łąka, jakiś słup, jeszcze stoją i ciągną mnie przez jakieś góry, jakiś ołtarz, tam stoi jakieś ludzie. To co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Wszystko trzęsie się, wszystko budzi. Otwieram bramę i wszystko mnie nudzi. To co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. To co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. It's my attempt at trying to recall Poland.
This is the Sex Mess Notebook.
How do you know? Sex Mess is a series that has been published throughout all the issues. It's a series of 33 essays that I wrote. Pick a number, go ahead. No, it's 17. My finger carries the fragrance of our bed tonight, but stronger, an undiluted aroma. I enjoy it by myself for a long time. I know exactly where to touch and what man to think of. But tonight I want to swim in a prolonged possibility, and so my finger plays around it, and I think of several others before I think of you. My other finger runs along my breast as if maybe it's someone else's. I feel them for the first time. Strong breasts, strong body. My finger strokes harder and comes closer. I think of the last one I had. I think of the last two I had. I think of the last one I had. I think of you. My finger reaches ecstasy. Okay, that's enough of sex for the evening. So that's it for half the program right now. We're have a special thing going. Nelson Nazario has made a wonderful short film, which will be screening to your left. So please hang around to see that, or if you can take a little break, and we're going on to the second half. Also, by the issue. Bye. Jim, we could get a little more light on the screen.
Hans now turned his head the little he could. The fine cavalier features had already wizened so deeply that he seemed to sketch for a Goya grotesque, the whole brown atmosphere collecting in his brow and cheeks. Kneeling beside him still, I saw a little above the granite bridge of his nose the Rhone moving erratically across the bloated, ballooning fields like a crow. Once in a while it disappeared behind a black-green copse, and when it emerged, heading away from us still in its wavering diagonal, shadows would cling to it for a moment or so, then fall away like drapes. I felt immeasurably relieved that not once out of all the times I had seen it disappear into the dismal scenery did the figure of Dracula come flying after it. Not only had we broken his teeth, we had taken his coffin away too. Monsieur Mans continued, "Arise, arise. You know the old cottage, once golden, nestled in the valley behind us." The governess could not restrain herself, and half whispered as if perceiving a miracle, "Plutonia, Plutonia." Ruined, yes, its roof beams rotted, but restorable. Perhaps not. But it is yours now. You live with her there, and prosper, make these lands prosper once more. Plutonia, I whispered, having heard so much of the magic hut. Monsieur Mans turned back his marmoreal gaze upon the stars, which perhaps only a man like himself, crossing realms, would be able to describe in all the fog, clouds, and misery. Okay, so while I'm in Washington, I'm working at the Korean collection at the Library of Congress to do translations of a surrealist Korean poet named Isang. He died, he's typical sort of poet. He's born in 1910, dies 1937. He's behind four books of works, poetry, prose, essays. Dies of romantic poet's disease, TB. And has translators 50 years later that forget to bring his manuscript up to the stage. Show and tell. This is a portrait of Isan. He was very much ahead of his time. As I said, he was writing mainly in the late 20s, early 30s in Seoul, which was totally isolated from the European surrealist, Dadaist, modernist milieu. But as you see, he has poems which have like number charts in the middle of them, he had flow charts and all sorts of things. Here he is being a East Village dressed, cigarette smoking 17-year-old punk poet in 1929 with he's a genius. He was a painter, then became a sculptor, then started being a published writer, and then to make money he became an architect. And here he's at a masquerade party. Koreans really know how to party. So there he is right there in a woman's wedding dress. I got tons of pictures of him. So anyway, I wanted to read these poems because, translated from him, because whenever I say, I'm translating Isan, a Korean poet from late 20s, 30s, this is through, oh, great! I said, but this poem is called Mirror. No, I'm serious, because actually there's a conception of Korean poets as always being in a certain way, and Isan, because he has not been translated, it's a very different way. First poem, I'll read two poems. The first one is called Mirror. In a mirror there is no sound. There is truly no world so quiet. In the mirror also are my ears. Two pathetic ears are there, unable to hear my words. In the mirror I'm left-handed, lefty that can't take my handshake, who doesn't know how to shake hands. Because of the mirror, I can't touch the mirror's eye, but if it were not a mirror, how could I have ever done something like meet myself in a mirror? I don't have a mirror on me now, but there's always an eye in the depths of one. That's I, not sorry. I'm not sure, but he's probably sunk in some sinister project. The eye in the mirror is my real self opposite, but also takes after me considerably. When I can't worry over and examine the mirror's eye, I get very depressed. And another poem called A Paper Memorial Stone, which is an oxymoron because in it's got a memorial stone and then it's paper, right? So paper stone, right? So, and he has a way of, the way he prints his poems in Korean is to run all the words together. There's no spaces between the words, so it's extreme. That's the first step in translating, is trying to figure out what the words are, what the syllables are. Paper memorial stone. And I'm reading this much slower with putting spaces in between words and phrases, because if you read it the way it was written, you'd go, okay, so anyway. Paper memorial stone. Definitely, symbol of movement from the oral to the printed poet. Okay, so because I'm tall, my legs are long, my left leg's lame, and my wife is small, so her legs are short and her right leg's lame, and so my right leg with my wife's left leg. If that pair of sound legs goes walking like one person, this husband and wife end up a cripple that no one can help. The whole problem-free world is a hospital, and its cure-awaiting absence of illness will definitely persist right up to the end. This last poem, I think, is a series of 15 poems called Crow's Eye View. And the Chinese character for crow and the Chinese character for bird have only one stroke difference in it. So people at the newspaper that are publishing poems naturally thought that, well, this is he made a mistake in his calligraphy, and they said they changed the character so it became bird's eye view instead of crow's eye view. But, those things were constantly happening to him, and he would deliberately print numbers upside down and they turn them back upside down. So, yeah. So this is poem number 2 out of that series of 15. And these were so against the tradition of lyrical poetry in Korea at the time that the readers reacted very violently, and they had to stop at number 15. So now it doesn't seem so. It seems postmodernist now. But okay, poem number 2 of Crow's Eye View. When my father dozes off beside me, I become my father, and also I become my father's father. And even so, while my father, like my father, is just my father, why do I repeatedly my father's father's fathers? When I become a father, why must I lovingly leap over my father? And why am I that which, while finally playing all at once, my father's, and my father's father's, and my father's 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 roles, must live? Okay, so, no, I'm not going to read this whole sheet. Let's see, what is the proper okay. All right, so I usually do poetry in readings, but now I'm experimenting with prose, so I'll throw it out to you. It's always a thing about readings. You throw something out into the dead air, right, and you know immediately. Of course, the opposite happens too sometimes. So here's a series of, this is actually this is number 1 out of that series where I read the Dracula marriage thing before, so number 1. Certain words are completely capitalized here. That's visual. Okay. 1. See? So anyway, number 1, okay. I can already remember 1. Okay.
Should we call out a number?
No, I don't have a 17. Okay. All right, so this is number 7, not 17, okay. JCC means what? JCC?
Jewish Community Center.
Yeah, Jewish Community Center. What was the other one? Junior? No, I don't want that. I didn't know that. I don't want to know that. I want you to know that. So my friend put out a book called Turning Japanese recently. By David Murrow, right? His account of his being in Japan for a year. And so Turning Japanese, he intended that to be an allusion to the pop song, right? Yeah. And then somebody came up to him at a conference and said, you know what Turning Japanese also means? Does anybody else know what Turning Japanese means?
That's what the song's about.
Oh, is that really what it's about? See, I didn't even understand the song. Okay, so. Huh? Well,
17 was it that?
Okay, all right, so, all right, number 7. Number seven, okay. The line at the JCC banquet hall, converted from a chalky mansion, was too long that my childhood body fell gilglow when I descended in parallel into the street. Outside the fenced-in trash lot, he made jokes about obtaining coke just like that. I began to walk off, smiling to myself that he still wore such torn-up blue windbreakers, and even that buttoned haphazardly. When I saw him talking with a runt who was letting him inspect a coffee filter piled over the top with snowy coke, which I spell C-O-K. At the same time, I also noticed a bright cop cruiser lurking in the lot like an alligator in the rubbish right behind the two. Fell closed the deal and came toward me, who had already begun to walk hurriedly off, wanting to get lost in a crowd or the park. There was a cop right behind you, you dummy, I hissed out the side of my mouth. Really? Oh my God, he said. His eyes glared like two blue fish behind the thick aquarium of his horn rims. Just as in the old days, without saying another word, we strayed off from each other and quickly reached the quiet sun-spread suburbs on a Sunday afternoon. Fell, I intuited, was probably closing back in on me now, and, if drawing a loop as normal, should be about 1 block south of me, on the other side of the tall high school. I caught glimpses of the cruiser now and then, like robust flashes of Blau in a Kandinsky improvisation, but strangely I was not rattled. The haphazardness of the cruiser's emergences and duckings from and behind green-hooded trash receptacles, white fire hydrants, and other parts of the bright scenery convinced me that it had not spotted us. Or, more correctly, yes, it had seen us now and then, but was not after us. I became convinced it was under remote control, or, more correctly, automatic control. Although why that should have comforted me, I don't know. Fell turned the corner toward me at the intersection 1 block south of me and came trotting up like an exuberant pet dog, chortling, a little abashed, but then walked right past me. The cruiser, in the schoolyard now, continued to jerk paws and wheel around in little fragments of circles. It too seemed to be chuckling, although everything was very, very quiet. I realized that the JCC hall was across the street. Glad I had not soiled my tan disco suit, I went back to see if the line to the banquet had gone down. Asterisk. Double space. Up the spiral stairway, past the lawn glimpsed at through a servant window, edging along the precipice. Mother and some pretty friend of hers watching from a deep corner in the banquet field, pointing proudly. I want to be handsome. Ridiculous Dicko suit. I go back out with David, the Korean son I'm supposed to be showing the ropes to. Outside, the whole avenue is celebrating graduation. The restaurants and bars have opened up to the spring sidewalks, and at every parasol table, there are dark, drunk, yarmulke-capped boys in white jackets and carnations, braying jokes with a flushed flower-dressed date, flower-dressed dates. Huge platters of chopped liver and pickled roasted or salted fishes and deli slices. Music woofed in everywhere. This is the Jewish gungdong, I joked to David, who was polite enough to smile at everything I say. We go back inside. Gungdong is the fashionable shopping eating district in Seoul. We go back inside and, in the spirit of feeling debonair, glide forward past the crowded open bar with our right shoulders cutting the air before us. David mounts the steps again, but in a dank corner, I pause to inspect a huge golden roasted side of carp whose scales seem to be fluttering. It was true that there had been a fairly strong breeze outside, and that, channeled by the narrow aisle along the bar from the thrown-open entrance, it could have been blowing across the fish. But in the end, I did not know if it was the wind or an internal respiration. In the dark, each gold-silver square, a black catar at its center, and ashes at its fringe, rose and fell like a tent in the desert. Again, I climbed up the spiral and inched along the precipice, this time almost falling over into the banquet field. In front of us in line were an old pink-dressed couple who commiserated with us about the unbearable conditions for entering the celebration. Again, Mother pointed at me and whispered to a friend in the far corner. It was clear to me now that I was expected to give a rousing poetry reading, and suddenly realized that the arcane, intellectual poems I had brought were totally unsuitable for the occasion. I should have, instead, brought a series about a pilgrimage to my ancestors' burial mounds in Korea. It always appealed more to the sentimentality of the first generation and Jewish sympathizers. But it was too late, and too much trouble now to go back home and fetch my folders. I'm paying her. At dinner, and the caterer had prepared the Korean dishes miserably, and the waiters were mean and incompetent. But I nevertheless felt compelled to champion the uniqueness and wonder of Korean cuisine. As in any of my propaganda about Korean culture, anything that resembled Japanese things, I would say, had been brought over from Korea originally. Tonight, the preparation was so ungainly, the marinade so bland, the portions unbalanced, the fried food so drowned in old oil, and worst of all, the loud wig seller across from me, David's father, kept asking me questions, throwing his money around and had spilled or white ounces of dark juices and oils down the lapels of his dinner jacket so that it looked like a tablecloth that hadn't been cleaned for years. You took my son David out, showed him around. What do you do? No, we just walked around, Dad. That good. Look, more food. More shit. And I had to explain that it was supposed to be. I had to explain what it was supposed to be like to my earnest white and Jewish acquaintances. Then began the train of questions about tips on how to get David into an Ivy League college. I had been an interviewer at admissions offices and so went into a long speech detailing the subtleties of the process, the ironies, paradoxes, injustices, exceptions, finally concluding that there was no surefire way to get in, even if you had straight A's and good SAT scores. David's father, near the end of the speech, began to look at me glassy-eyed and cocked over to one side, as if I were either the most entrancing raconteur or stupidest #1 son he had ever met. Or maybe he was just beginning to register with the food which he had shoveled indiscriminately was doing to his intestines. His lower lip stuck out like a stone ledge, and his whole red face slanted toward it like a baboon's. Fortunately, the belly dancer came out at this point, and, looking over his right shoulder, he screamed with delight, ordered another round of beers, and turned his chair around to watch, clapping, while his thin, overworked wife tried to smile at her lap, which intrigued me. The lights dimmed, the music wove into a soft interlude. She looked up at me, fingering back a bang, and quickly said, "I'm so worried about where my David, he cannot go to Harvard." I lied to her and assured her that he was bound to get in somewhere in the Ivies. But all this had begun to feel nauseous, especially since I didn't give two shits about Ivy League education. I had sent a suicide note in with my Harvard application. And it's true. And the essay was about Baudelaire and how poets were dying early and be disrupted. With my Harvard application, and had turned down Yale, Columbia, and Hopkins to go to a new experimental college. And I needed to get outside. It was then that I realized I was in a documentary about David's struggle up from immigration to a new land, subsequent problems with the language and culture, hard ascent through the U.S. educational system, failure as a third baseman, and eventual success as a battleship designer and tightrope walker in London. I quickly began inquiring about the identity of the producer-director to see if he would hire me on as a production assistant. That is so politically incorrect. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so I'll close out now with a poem. Gotta find the right one. Now it's going to have to be one too. You want a very imagistic poem, or you want a very sort of
That one.
yeah, that one, the second one? So, okay. All right, that gets me out of certain problems. Okay, so this one. Okay, so this, I'm writing a series about being in Korea as a TV, as a news producer, and then mixing that in with all sorts of, I think I'm going to Korea because I'm going back to the ancestral land, and people, all romantic and rootsy about it. And meanwhile, I'm making my money with people who are like making a ridiculous cartoon out of this country, and yet there are all these ambiguities about it because I'm glad that I can say that I'm working for CBS News. Half the time I'm knowing I'm protecting the Koreans from the American crew, or the Americans from the Koreans. And when I'm trying to protect the Koreans, I almost get killed in a riot. But this is the point of departure, which is before we get into all those ambiguities. So it's still nice and romantic. And each poem in this series begins with a Korean title. So this is Trubal, which means departure. So it's leaving America. And actually that was a bad introduction because the only Asian place I mentioned is Xi'an, which is a city in China. But anyway. Okay, it's very hard to read. So, Truba. The last woman he slept with in America had left him sound within the charm of her affections, which came from her happily, he was happy to note. He knew that her unabashedness, surprising even to herself, she would say at dawn, had remelted the air near him, so that the sunlight words, what laughter or wind, what came to him, fell toward him now, like light reoriented by diffraction gratings. Her kisses and care had been that precise. That whatever was near him opened toward him now. Light fell now, and sounds toward him now, scenes turned to him, lifting themselves from the long tormented surfaces of estranged objects, approached but not supplicant or in guilt. For in her charm, he too seemed to lean toward them, stem-like. And as he traveled, he knew he could imagine her from afar. By that, also, she was surprised. And concluded even that if she were not to reciprocate that care, it did not matter so much as she might worry they might hurt him, since his heart was calmed so often by their 2 nights together, which he was learning to maintain. So so that when he kept going, all that falling toward him, so long as he remembered how her touch had showed him how to lean likewise, both ablaze and gentle. He seemed to always move forward through a showering of them, as if they were falling diagonally in straight rays from above and behind him. And whichever way he turned, until looking down, he realized that it was the falls of his heart, not some element outside him, the falls in his heart. So that is why he saw that all light and sound and touch always swept toward him from above and behind, no matter which way he turned. For instance, whether he was sitting still in a dark corner of his compartment as the train tugged out of the dusk near Xi'an, or walking raggedly at noon up the path past the ancient statues. Those falls then were like a magnet, because though it was an illusion that the rays fell from above and behind him, diagonally outside of him, it could still be true the currents inside were so influenced to rein all in the same direction, no matter in which part of his body they arose and coursed through the ducts, flows, and vaginations of all his thriving cells and senses. And so when he held his moist-stained finger up to the light above them, he saw how the frills of light seemed to pierce his finger, aligning themselves with the sweep of his blood. And so, on analogy, he imagined the same type of alignment along the larger surfaces of his whole mass. She laughed at the signs of it, and opening her blouse, asked him to compare the hickey he had left with the fine structure, the fine weave of her new skirt, which she held up to him. They were standing in the mirror by that tiny bathroom which she had inexplicably taken the door off of. He nodded, but she scolded him. "You didn't really take a good look at it. You don't see how beautiful." And he leaned forward, but was confused whether to the marble-like bruise which seemed to be both blossoming and still on the swell of her breast exposed by the down-folded blouse, or to the veined and geometric radiance of the skirt she held up to him as they both began to lean down, the smell of each other's hair. They were standing in the mirror. Thank you.
Our next poet, who is now also a director and actor, and etc., is Nelson Nazario. Nelson?
Hi. These are really short and really
Let the cigarette out.
they're on the side. Okay. These are poems that I wrote like years ago when I was in high school. I think I graduated now. The first one's called Lillian, and she was really important in my life. She was kind of hard to figure out, but and the shit that she was going through. And this was written like after we buried her, and it was like during we had a very on Thanksgiving, so it was like a real depressing thing like that. And I wrote this on the plane. As I'm going homeward, I have just remembered so of all the lonely people in my home, and thinking of the life they lived and how it was so bad. I just hope those things will never happen to me, and maybe they will pass. But let's face it, I can never really force to see all the things I want of them and all the things they want me to be. That's that. And the first one, I titled mine after people that I love, people I love a lot, I write about them. And this one's called Alex, and this was a friend of mine, like a distant cousin. He might showed me my first X film and got me some drugs and things like that. But he died like 2 years ago, and it was like really horrible. He died of AIDS, and this is about him. And it goes, I have only myself to blame for injecting death in my veins, for darkening my heart, ripping my soul apart. I have only myself to blame. I have only myself to say, to see light the next day, to laugh and breathe, to live and be. I have only myself to say. I got one more. And this is really on a poem. It's really on plagiarizing, okay? And it's from that Solomon case, the deal with the woman and the whole deal. And this was I picked this up from a newspaper. Someone was interviewed about, you know how like they always say like, oh, she was a nice person and all this stuff. But this one person really said something that for me was really poetic in a way. I don't know, it just struck me. So I don't know how you guys are gonna eat it. This guy said, and I changed the names because I don't want to use the actual names. Lydia was killed because Lisa was in love with Paul, a married man. Lisa at times hoped that Paul would marry her. That was her dream. And when you dream, you're innocent. You're innocent. Even when you dream about that. Thanks.
Something out of a Werner Herzog movie.
Yeah.
I'm in the one with the little dwarves playing on the piano. I'm very happy because I had a dry spell for about a year and a half, and I'm starting to write again, which is very nice. And I'm going to start off with the two most recent things. Okay, I'm going to start with the one a little less recent because I'm too nervous to start off with the one I just wrote this weekend. Oh, God. Sorry. It's okay. This is a flamenco poem for a flamenco dancer with the wonderful name of Maria Cha-Cha Bermudez. It is as you pause before the dance, waiting a still center of fury, waiting for a spur to propel you onward, some overwhelming chord, that I think I am waiting for beauty, for a nightmare to once again consign me its angel. But it is in the sudden possession, the plunging in, that I feel somewhat ashamed, somewhat shy, to be still so short of that urgency, or so yet unworthy of such an exit, so noble for being so clean. For we seem to forget that the rage and the glory come only through bodies, through blood and through bones, through the feet to the floor. And I am waiting, I feel, and others, I think, wait with me, for the dead skin to burn off and sing. Am I loud enough? Okay. Montreal. Traveling, yes. The correspondent says, the size and color of Tiffany lamps, the jellyfish of South Nova Scotia. Well, I have been traveling too. And your mouth in the taxi is dripping with shadows of rain. This tense and blushing air, this air like the nervous down all along your forearm. This is your place, and I have finally entered. A mass spoken in French, and hats, a resurrection of a masculine tradition, are lazy in older men's laps. And your mouth whispers, why are we here? And we are instantly given away, defiantly English in the land of your birth. And the Gallic heads turn your childhood otherness. They might have shunned on a playground. We are in their cathedral. Side by side on the pew, the back of your neck thrilling on my fingertips, and so you bolt, leaving me an abandoned body. You left and fled into a thicket, leaving me an impossible bride, leaving me an abandoned infant. And this is not my mother's land. Okay. Flaubert in Egypt. Flaubert in Egypt going from whorehouse to whorehouse. Rimbaud gun running the Mediterranean. Beauty does seem to have failed them. So what do we do when beauty fails us? In Mexico and Malibu, New York and London, pulling away from the center of things, becoming no more than a backdrop for something else entirely. Betrayal? Or merely the slow erosion of touch? What's left to us then, made beautiful primarily through our desires? Go live another kind of life, why don't you? Keep your hands away from the landmines of joy. No to that. Throw yourself into your work with a beauty that is anger, with an anger that creates a ravenous desire for the truth, our Virgil, a passionate desire for reunion, our Beatrice. Okay, and I'm going to end with that big epic poem I wrote when I was 19, trying to write a big epic poem. And still was okay. It's amazing, you know, you write something you think it's going to dump in the trash heap, and when you still like something 6 years later, you know it's okay. Cafe La Fortuna. It's in 3 parts. First part. In the lobby, decaying mirrors. In the train station, decaying timetables. Late arrivals, late departures, the doorman opening doors. The wind blows an entrance. Not you. The schedule is useless. There are delays due to the violent weather. More bombings are in the lobby newspaper, like that endlessly burning Italian train. Curiously, both left and right-wing factions claim responsibility for the act. Doors open, it's you. We walk to Cafe La Fortuna. Second part. Our people explode so slowly, colliding softly with their destinations. We read every word of their final seconds on the 3rd or 4th page of the Times, or on any of a million screens monitoring our age. It's the news today. We are talking about the terrible world. Flags shuddering around the stadium, consigned to fires of wall. Read about South America, students shot by police as they drink espresso in their campus bistro, while I sit here, Manhattan, 71st Street in Columbus, drinking a cappuccino royale and talking to you. You laugh. Well, what would you rather have happen here? Wanted bullets to burst in these opera walls, Caruso's signed portrait shattered by the high note, our cups and saucers die, but we, of course, survive, diving under the tables for cover and the right to live and fight another day. What a load of happy horse shit. So, you say, you're a closet revolutionary, 3 cheers. You want to save the world. So do I, preferably in a tux and top hat. But see here, how are you to convince me, or anyone for that matter, that among a million staged atrocities in print, on screen, in Life magazine, that these horrors that you've told me about are real, that yours exist? No chance, my friend. Not a bit depressed, have a cannoli. There's nothing to be done. On the speakers Verdi, La Forza del Destino, written in the old country. Every table is packed full. They all seem to be waiting for something. That train image again. Simply put, I want to claim responsibility. 3rd section. In transit from terminal to terminal, I cross and crisscross the affluent kingdom, and scenes from these wars are blowing around us. There is no wind. They have replaced the wind. Our dead and dismembered, decaying mirrors, lighter than air. Every platform is packed full. I claim responsibility for this thing I have not seen, have nothing to do with, have no business in pretending to comprehend. It simply suits my purpose. My actions are effortless. They achieve nothing. I claim responsibility. A million staged atrocities on express wheels pass and are gone. I remain, yours truly, stationary between stations. Thank you.
The next poet will be featured in Poets Feet 4. I like to bring in new people for the reading. I'm very happy that Daniel Pinchbeck has agreed to read tonight. The latest news is Daniel Pinchbeck also has his own literary magazine.
I'll read just a few because I think it's getting late. People are tired. Let's see. This is called a meeting. I went to the enemy of the people. His great gray head trembled in sorrow. I spoke to the enemy of the people. He told me that life was inside of him and he couldn't get it out. Down in the streets, lumpy masses of individuals shared their pain silently, offered nothing to each other. The streets were caverns. Days dripped down upon us. The enemy of the people held up his withered hand. Your eyes are blue or brown, he said. You come from one place or another. There where you walk, others also follow. Once you dreamt about a neon bulb, a bottle of water, cats lounging in the sun. Now you rise up into your childhood like smoke. His beard was the color of old junkyard, and when he laughed, most of his teeth were gone. This is called One Woman's Journey. These are like negative poems, right? You crawled out of your skull like a snail from its shell. Liberated, you wandered the beach, where everyone looked perfect. The absence of being is stronger than being. Trucks rattled across the surface of your eyes. Men came to look at your breasts and to try to take you away from all that. But alone in your room, your mirror betrayed you. The absence of being is stronger than being. Your thought balloon burst, the cartoon unspooled itself. The world reached down into its dark mouth and pulled out flowers, rabbits, a hat trick. This one's called Ambition. It's good to be ambitious. I am going to be just the best imaginable book, says the book. An unkempt cat races across the silhouetted rooftop. I am going to be a very, very good dot, says the dot. Hands reach through the window, grow bigger than the window, grow bigger and bigger. Laughing hands lacking in social graces. Laughing hands fly around the universe as though they spoke the language of the universe. I am going to be a very useful tautology, says the self-satisfied statement. This one's called The Reader. When the reader comes to a comma, he skips to the end of the book, where the pages are covered with hair, and other readers, unaware of their desires, scrawl titles of books they want to read. Some other night, some other night. When the reader reads the book, it often seems the book is about another book, which he can't find because either it hasn't been written yet, or it is long out of print and missing from all the local libraries. Another day, another night. The sound of footsteps in the hall. The reader puts down the book and, in the same motion, reaches down for the shotgun hidden beneath the bed. These days, it doesn't pay to be too cautious, and crime doesn't pay except for those who are good at it. The first glass sounds out like the period which follows the conclusion of the book's second chapter. He lost his place, now the day is over. If the reader can only stop reading the book, the characters repulse him, the plot doesn't interest him, the narrator is clearly insane. Page after page, night is crumbling. The eye of the book stares out at him. The hole in the book is made of human flesh. The reader reaches through the window of the book, and something grabs onto him. These are not the words he meant to read. This is called Farfello. A putrescent ringlet of skulls adorns Farfello, that wrinkled fool who chases away audiences with a leer. His feet are horse's hooves, and his mind sputters out guttural sparks. You see him, clown king, poised against ripped canvas tarpaulin, squeaking out through his parched tongue. His cackling maw, painted in rouge, churns the fury of the crowd. On the subway, Farfello becomes unhinged, screaming at children. The hunchback writhes in pain as three cops pull him away. Alone, he throws a bottle of gin down the chute of his brain. Having endured another day, Farfello beds down with mule and rooster to dream of his circus grave. If you write really negative poems, then you're a really positive person in normal life, so I recommend them. I'll just read maybe like one more. This is called In the Terrarium. The sleeping man in the terrarium falls down again. Overblown flowers blast the eyes as petals blather about lost childhoods. Now the valence changes. Shoes fly through the Negativo parking lot, where sex acts between teenagers startle moonlit pedestrians, and dogs drip through oblivions of dog. In the terrarium, heat melts the dry bones, Mankind speaks from its white hood as the suburban mall fades to Ode to Joy. The eruption of the cogito lights every lamp in the house, sends screaming minions down the hills, wakes up the wicked dead. The sleeping man in terrarium falls down again. Thank you.
The next reader is Jonathan Torn, a short story writer published in Poets Feet 3. And we welcome to Poets Feet.
Okay. Well, if I get a plug in here, I'm going to be reading with a guy who wrote before me a week from tonight at Man Ray. So please come by and hang out with us. Okay, I'm going to read from this novel that I read. My bedroom, fronting the street as it did, had the window taken out and replaced with reinforced plasterboard. It would seem it did to me that the first night, as I got beneath the covers and turned out the light, that I was cut off entirely from the life of the street. But a small vent near the ceiling emitted the noises of the nightly scene with clarity. That first night was my introduction to what still, after so long a time, seemed the activity that to me defined a time, defined a place, defined a personality that was my own at that time, as I became acquainted with the neighborhood over a period of time, roughly 1 year, not with my eyes, but with my ears. During the summer, it was the richest, with everyone on the block sitting on their front stoops, the radios tuned to listen to Reggie Jackson, hit home runs to the staccato descriptions of Phil Rizzuto, speaking in the rapid percussive accents of Cuban Spanish. I loved hearing it at night, safe in my room. As much as I feared it when I heard it on the street when approaching a group, even with my father beside me to hurry me past them. Then they looked at us with surprise and resentment. If we had thought fit to introduce ourselves as honest-to-God, bona fide neighbors, I doubt if they would have given us credit. Of course, we never did. This sudden reminder of my difference was what was missing through the air vent in the evening. Free from my fear of confronting these speakers directly, I actually found great comfort and romance in their unintelligible conversations. For a while, high spirits, drunken speeches, and impassioned sports commentary seemed to hold sway. Then, inevitably, something else. Something that jolted the camaraderie, shocking, thrilling. When confrontations or hints of violence arose, they were accompanied with whistles, catcalls, words which seemed to advise or taunt. The whole block reacting as spectators to what was happening. Often threats were resolved to laughter, and when that started, I would breathe a sigh of relief, hot breath muffled by the sheet. If it was more serious, if the laughter didn't come, if instead there was a quick, short gasp from the crowd, followed by the babble of dozens of simultaneous and passionate discussions, then something not funny had just happened, something which I did not care to see but could only guess at. Winters were worse, however, and it was with winter that I first became acquainted. It was quieter instead of continuous noise, silence for most of the evening. Because of this, when an altercation of any form or sort took place without the comforting layer of relaxing stoop dwellers and the sharp and biting, it came through sharp and biting like a wind from the north without interruptions, or the deadening intervention of a peaceful crowd. The shouting and the curses would bluntly escalate and shift back to sharpness in method, bluntness in design. The threat of violence was palpable and almost present, right in front of me in my very room, so that I would hide under the covers from ghostly presences which were not even aware of my existence, so concerned they probably were at the time with the situation at hand, which had caused such emotion to come forth. When I could barely bring myself to imagine. I suppose when I tried, I thought not of unseen reality I had never experienced, but of films and television I had seen, switchblades, coats of brown leather, shiny shoes with buckles, and a murderous gleam in the eyes. But in these films, the audio component, whatever the hack writers who concoct these things had devised to symbolize the rigors of life in the streets, had been full of the verbal sparring, the husky non sequiturs of prairie life with John Wayne and Charles Bronson, refiltered through the synthesizing sensibility of the producer of product. While what I heard coming through my vent was not heroic or witty, but rather deranged and blunt verbal assault with the only English words being used, motherfucker and fuck you, with other choice Spanish phrases I would not learn till later. It seemed strange to me that they would only consider English suitable for use in cursing. Then silence would follow, during which, curious, I would open my ears as far as I could to take in every bit of information that might come from that howling silence, when a final yell or scream would enter into my unprepared ears with the full force that my active imagination, working overtime to recreate the possible cause of such a horrendous sonic aberration, would simulate upon my own person. Then I would look at the white walls with their extra glossy finish, and it could be that against these I saw projected momentarily a negative image of myself. Every now and then there would be not two voices rising in escalation to each other, but a single voice. Then there would not be the drama of two venomous personalities, each trying to outshoot the other verbally with mounting intensity, but a regular occasional cry like a light boat of pain sending out its regular signal. This was the most frightening, being seemingly devoid of any intelligence whatsoever, constant and varying and animal. But again, I felt empowered. Even at the time, I felt terrified. For by lying in my bright room, listening to the abstract results of the suffering outside, I felt that I understood things about the world and about human suffering that few people other than myself did. Indeed, many times in the last few years, I have yearned for such a perception, if not the reality of understanding. While I centered almost around these evening listening bouts, it became a consuming passion, like the appreciation of great art, an art which was uplifting, empowering to me. It was safe as a radio, yet better because the sharp pangs of pain and sympathy that shook me did not so much to make me feel that I was in some kind of a way a superior being. Years later in college, I first became acquainted with the legend of the Iron Calf, and was stricken speechless with the realization of the connection to this, the passion of my youth, to the musical Iron Calf, in which victims were roasted, their screams turned into beautiful music. My vent turned the suffering of those in the streets outside into personal therapy. I still feel deep inside the lack of intensity with which life greets me now, compared with the feelings of terror and omnipotence that gripped me at the time, listening to either the whole polyphony of the street scene in the summer, to the counterpoint of a wintertime brawl, or to the blunt, atonal soloing of a lone transient wanderer. I wasn't quite the orchestra leader. I knew that had to be the work of a greater power, a concept with which I had only recently become to wrestle with. I had a box seat which at the time seemed permanent, a lifetime purchase. Little did I know that someday I would be ousted and my theater put to the torch.
Jonathan's horn. And now we have Alan come a long way also. I had the pleasure of meeting last summer. Thank you, Alan.
I'd like to thank everyone for sticking around. I especially want to thank Meg for, for putting this all together. It's our round of applause. I'm just going to read one story. It's called Cornelia, and it's set in a steakhouse, Bonanza Steakhouse. I don't know if they have those in New York City. They're sort of low budget steakhouses with salad bars, and I like them. I guess I do want to add that while waiting, while enjoying everyone else's performance, I was tempted to recopy this onto a napkin. I thought that would look clever to read off a napkin. But I didn't, so here it goes. Around the bend of her most orderly thoughts, Cornelia's mind swerved towards the ludicrous. She lost control after a certain point. She stuck her tongue out in mid-sentence. She ordered sushi at steakhouses. She wrote love poems to state senators. Not one of the senators replied, but the manager of a Bonanza Steakhouse urged her to see a therapist when she asked for her T-bone served raw with soy sauce and a bowl of ramen noodles. At first, he told her to try a Japanese restaurant. Cornelia waxed indignant. She demanded to see the manager. I am the manager, said the 19-year-old behind the counter. I want to see the manager's parents, said Cornelia. No, said the young man, you want to see a therapist. Until he said the word therapist, Cornelia was fine, albeit visibly irate. She still knew who and where she was. But the suggestion to seek medical attention touched a raw nerve. It incensed her, it boiled her blood. The coals inside the furnace of her mind, already red hot, turned white, then blue, then white again. Then they became something other than coals. They changed state on her, they transformed. They left the furnace and paraded through the aisles of the train that was her mind. They took over the cabin, the caboose, and they tortured the passengers with lousy jokes and noxious fumes. Needless to say, the train derailed. The manager of the Bonanza saw it go over a steep embankment and watched it plummet, roll, and burst into flames. The sight startled him. He worried for the safety of the clientele and the crew that worked the grill. The flames that tongued the grill behind him were but a paltry, worldly approximation of the platonic holocaust that he saw behind her eyes. Damn, said the manager, I hate when this happens. Cornelia's mouth opened, but she did not scream. She shook with the strain as the clientele trooped past with their well-done steaks, Texas toast, and tapioca pudding. They began to suspect something was up, however, when the ketchup and Worcestershire sauce bottles on the tabletops rattled and swayed. But they were ill prepared for what came next, even the ones who had seen many horror movies. It seemed to come to disturb them all. It made them think twice before going to a steakhouse again. Cornelia gritted her teeth, and one by one she thought the workers and the customers out of existence. They vanished like puffs of steam on a cold day in winter, or like spots lifted from soiled shirts in the wash. No one, not she nor the manager, knew where they went. When she was alone, she caught her breath and walked behind the deserted counter to find where they kept the meat. For an hour or so, she sat on the floor of a freezer and stuffed handfuls of red and white chuck, perfectly raw, into her mouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next time you go first, you'll be first. That's it. Thank you for sticking around. Please buy your book and submit your material. And if anyone's interested in being on the mailing list, the orange card cards, the postcards, there's a pile of them on the table. Just write your name and address on there, and you'll be notified of the next reading. The next book is coming out in September, first in Los Angeles, and then here in the autumn.